Hello and welcome to the G3 podcast. Joining me is Brandt Page, CEO of crypto-based prediction game provider Bitblox. Brandt, appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So apart from the brief chat we've just had, it's the first time we've actually had a chance to have a conversation. So before we get into Bitblox itself, I'd be interested to kind of hear your thoughts on just the overall iGaming industry's relationship with cryptocurrency and how, as awareness of cryptocurrencies kind of grows in mainstream media, what's the scope for iGaming to capitalize on that opportunity?
Look, I think there is a couple of areas to focus on that sort of general question. I think number one, clearly, it's already been demonstrated through the ever rising crypto casino market that players are very willing to use crypto to bet, whether that be stable coins like USDC or USDT, or even Bitcoin, Ethereum, and others. So that's definitely one area I think that is a very logical pathway for the industry to grow. Secondly, I think we also started seeing some of the operators create their own token. So, whether that is being used for rewards or promotions, or even as a player mechanism where people can use the house token to play. You see some of the models there where, the operator will issue a token, and then as revenue or otherwise is being generated, they burn part of the token, and so they can create this sort of element of scarcity to the token. So, there's some obviously both promotional and real money aspects to that. And then thirdly, which is, where we haven't caught up yet, is the continued sort of growth of Web3 itself. And obviously we've seen some operators effectively try to launch and be a fully on-chain operating system. I don't think even the fastest of the blockchains at the moment, I don't think that technology is quite there yet to support that. But I think, look 5 or 10 years ahead, we could really be seeing some interesting stuff on Web3 as well.
And in terms of how Bitcoin-based titles work, we'll get into kind of specifics of games that you've got in the portfolio later on, but just in a general sense, do you require an understanding of crypto markets to make better informed decisions, or are they accessible to crypto novices? Say, my knowledge of the space is decent because of being in the betting industry, but in terms of my actual knowledge of the markets themselves, it isn't great. So would it be accessible to somebody like me, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think our games, the way I describe our games or our content is we are building entertainment around the Bitcoin price. Okay. And I would often use the tagline, we let players engage with crypto without having to touch it. Okay. So it's not about buying or selling Bitcoin or anything like that. It is literally, if you look at Up or Down Turbo, our sort of flagship 20-second game, you're literally just making a prediction about, is Bitcoin going up or down in a 20-second period? If you are a crypto enthusiast, we have the chart there that you can watch and you can look and you think if Bitcoin's on a run or otherwise. But in the end, the gameplay is very simple. Anyone can understand it. And I think that's one of the powerful things about it.
And so is there a return to player on these games?
There's not so much a return to player. This is where, on the other side, what I'd almost describe our content as it's akin to a sports betting game that lives in the casino section of an operator's website, because we are offering fixed odds to players. And when we come to sort of cross-market appeal, I can expand a bit more. But, when someone has a bet on Up or Down Turbo, if the odds are showing 1.9 and they have $10 on it, they will get $19 if they win. Okay, so it's the price they strike at the time. So it's a little bit of a hybrid on that side of things. So it's not pure RTP on that sense, but it still generates, from a commercial perspective for operators, it still generates GGR. So it's a very similar commercial deal to what an operator would look at a slot game or a crash game.
Well, seeing as you've touched on that subject, we'll go there. Are there kind of, maybe difficulties is the wrong word, but is there kind of any kind of challenge to positioning these prediction-based games on the online casino lobby? As you say, there is that cross-market appeal to sports, but they're not. You wouldn't put them under flops, you wouldn't put them under crash, you wouldn't put them under live. So where do we go?
Well, it's a very interesting point. If I give you a real life story, when we went live in July last year, one of our initial supporters was Sportsbet, obviously a very big operator, and they started the game off in the crash and instant win game section of their website. And then they noticed that people that never played casino games, like people that just did sports, were actually finding our game and playing it. And so they then added an extra link in the sports tab. And then eventually they just put it on the front page, because you're right, there is no proper vertical at the moment. And I think, while we are being a little bit disruptive, my goal really would be that we do create a sort of new vertical in this space, whether it's sort of crypto-based games, crypto play, whatever the description might be. But I think we need to get to a critical mass of content, with new games, etc., before that will happen. So, I think for the time being, probably most operators will put us somewhere in the casino universe, and most likely somewhere akin to the crash games, because a lot of people do say to me that they see our content sort of being the next type of aviator, in the even though it's a different gameplay, but like that's the sort of, where things are moving with it.
I mean, that is quite the aspiration in terms of that game, because that really has.
I'd be very happy to be a small percentage of that success.
Yeah, an incredible amount of success. In terms of where the inspiration came from for the whole bringing crypto-based prediction games to iGaming, where did that come from? Is there somebody within the company that's driven that, or is it something that you've driven?
Well, the inspiration is effectively, if we look back into the sort of crypto degen world, as I would say it, if you contrast Aviator, if you look at things like, there is a game that lives in the Web3 world called Bust-A-Bit, and in a way, Aviator is very similar to that. And so we've seen, similar businesses offering these sort of prediction games in a different format, in a pool-based aspect and, different timeframes. But, we took that idea and started testing it in the sort of bigger global iGaming space, just to see if we thought there'd be demand, because we knew it was different. And it was very clear from very early on that people thought, oh, this is quite cool. And even we started off, when we were doing things, we were doing demonstrations or promotions of a 10-minute game. You're predicting what will Bitcoin do in the next 10 minutes. And you can see, as we've evolved, we're now down to sort of, 1 minute and 20 seconds, or like 1 minute is our longest game, as opposed to 10 minutes or longer from there. So yeah, really, I think there's a lot of good ideas in the sort of, in that sort of crypto degen space.
And you touched before on that cross-market appeal with sports betting. What kind of market research have you done into your player base? Because in terms of trading in Bitcoin and crypto, I know plenty of people who are interested in that. They vary in age, they vary, your men, women, young, old. It is something that a lot of different kinds of people are interested with different amounts of money as well. So, kind of, what's your average demographic?
It's difficult to say, because we don't exactly have the player details itself, but we know where we're seeing player activity from, and we know a lot of stuff about what people are doing. What I would say in the sense of cross-market appeal is that I think, where I touched on before about us being a bit like a sports betting product living in the casino section, the aspect of, if you look at up or down, if I was to look at a slot game currently, like a way a lot of slots where I work is you sort of go on a journey through various sort of levels, if you like, different ways of doing things. But you get special promotions as you go through, and eventually you get to the end of it and start again. So I think for a lot of people, once they do that, perhaps there's more limited appeal in coming back. With up or down and up or down turbo, you've always got the live real price of Bitcoin. So there's always something different happening with Bitcoin. So every time someone comes back to the game, it's not exactly if you like the same thing. And I think on the flip side of that is with the fixed odds nature of it. If you're a sports betting person, the way you look at this is like, actually, I could beat this. It's not an RNG that I know if they keep playing over a long period of time will eventually, take my money, basically. So I think that's why it appeals on the sports side. And on the casino side, it does play like a casino game. Like it is very much like that. I think we've done a very good job of sort of making it engaging on that side of things. So that's what I'd say on that one.
And how difficult are these games to build?
They're not easy in that sense. I mean, to give you an idea, like a lot of people ask me about, well, what Bitcoin price is it? How do I know it's, fair or provably fair? So that is, the one element of, our business now that is still on chain. We actually take the Bitcoin price from an on-chain oracle called the Pith network. So it's not just, we're not just taking the Binance price or the, someone else's price. So the Pith oracle, I think when I last checked, has 31 different publishers to that oracle. And if you wanted to, you could go and validate what we're showing on our game to something on chain and see it. So I think that's a very important piece around it. But it's if it was really easy, I'm sure lots of other people would be doing it. But yeah.
And at ICE last week, you debuted your 3 in a row, which is your newest game. So could you just tell me, for those who didn't go see your stand, could you just tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, we're very excited about 3 in a row. So with the concept of up or down turbo being a 20-second game, we have effectively flipped the concept into almost an accumulator type product, an ACCA if we were using sports betting terms, where instead of getting one prediction, you've now got to get 3 in a row correct. Okay, you've got 3 20-second games. But so now we're up to 8 combinations of up or down, effectively the way that the thing works. But we've also introduced a bet builder feature, so you can actually combine 3 of those 8 combinations into one single bet. Okay, so you've got that side of things. So I'm very excited. Like, obviously much bigger payouts than just a straight up or down game as well. So we're very excited about 3 in a row. I think the gameplay itself is really, really solid. The guys have worked incredibly hard to get 3 in a row to where it is now, and I really think it could be a very successful game for us in 2025.
And from a product strategy perspective, is it strictly Bitcoin-based titles for the foreseeable future? Is this kind of a niche that you want to carve out and take into the mainstream, or will you look to branch straight into those mainstream verticals, such as your slots and crash games? That is something that's particularly intriguing, because you see a lot of live casino providers then go into slots, or slot providers go into live casino. But as you come in at this kind of outer edge that's got the market appeal, are you going to stay there, or are you going to flip
Well,
it?
it's funny you ask that, because if you look at 3 in a row in a sense, it actually does look and play a little bit like a slot anyway, even though it's not a slot game. So, maybe we'll introduce some elements of that to what is our core strength. But I think as I said at the start, I think, for the foreseeable future, our ethos is all around entertainment, building entertainment for players around the price of Bitcoin. I'm never going to rule out doing other things. We've certainly got some very interesting product ideas that are not purely Bitcoin based, but they're still crypto based. So yes, I think that's sort of where we'll stay for now. There's some very exciting developments, even to like that. We've got some very exciting developments to our 60-second up or down game, where we're going to introduce a live cash out feature. So at the moment, if I put the 60-second game and the 20-second game to people, 99 people out of 100 will play the 20-second game rather than the 60-second game. But when we introduce the live cash out, if you're going into the screen, immediately, if you've got, as the Bitcoin price is moving, you've got a cash out thing through the whole 60 seconds. I think that will make that, a far more appealing game on that side. And then, there's some other very exciting aspects to sort of how up or down turbo works that we're going to introduce as separate content as well. So, we have a lot of ideas. I think as we grow, really the aim is to be releasing something at least every month. That's where we want to get to from a content and delivery perspective.
And in recent months, you've penned a few partnerships: Timeless Tech, Betcoin, 21 Virals. How are games performing with these partners? We mentioned demographics before, but just in terms of overall performance, what's the performance like, and what's the feedback you're getting? What are the metrics you're tracking, and kind of what improvements are you making to games on the fly?
I think I'd give you probably, maybe 3 sort of key stats. We have seen, like when someone visits our game on a website, we're seeing conversion rate of in excess of 20% of people actually then betting. So, which is pretty high in the sense of someone landing on a game and then actually playing it. The other thing that I find very interesting is like our average session duration is in excess of 6 minutes. So people are actually sitting playing our game on average for more than 6 minutes at a time. And that's funnily enough, that corresponds with about playing 10 games if you're playing up or down turbo. And again, that's often longer than people spend on an entire website. And then, yes, we do, we've got pretty strong numbers on retention in the sense of things like, and then even just generally, like we've had more than, I think we're getting close to 15,000 unique players just having played up or down turbo since we went live back in July last year. And that at the moment is without any promotion. Like, we're building, what we call Bitblox Engage this quarter, which is basically our promotional toolkit where we will introduce some free bet concepts where, your players like similar to free spins where, you can get 5 or 10 bets at the minimum stake of 10 cents and, you keep the winnings. We'll also introduce the concept of more social aspect where we'll have leaderboards and things like that. So we can introduce a more free to play thing, which I think will be something quite important if we want to look at the affiliate space. So there's a lot there's a lot of things we can do on the promotional front too as we go. And that's one of the things that, makes me very excited in 2025. And that, we know without the sort of promotional element, the content lands with people and lands with a decent spectrum of people. So as we can build better tools from an engagement perspective, I think, it's important. And I think, that's where I come back to as well. In some respects, sometimes people ask me about, is this only appealing to crypto casinos? And I say, well, no, because if you think about it, if I've got an entire player base that only bet on sports, and all of a sudden I found a game in the casino that can bring them in, like there's a huge opportunity there to cross-sell them into other stuff in the casino. And then separately, we know that younger generations are far more comfortable with crypto themselves. So if there's a way that you can bring them in via a crypto game, okay, well, can you get them across to betting on sports and other things like that? And, so I think that there's a lot of potential there as we build out how that promotional stuff works with our partners.
And that crypto space is quite a social community as well. So bringing in something like leaderboards, is there any other social elements that you might look to bring in over time?
One of the other ones that we're seeing a lot of potential need for is like PvP, like player versus player type stuff, where people can actually literally, bet against each other, which funnily enough is this sort of, in an expanded sense, is the sort of pari-mutuel model. If anyone knows what a pari-mutuel is, where you're dealing with pools where, people are betting into a pool, there's no house in that sense. And, you the way you commercially do that is taking a rate from the overall pool. But then there's the single player versus player elements as well. I think this and you think that, and how can we do that sort of thing? But I think that could be quite exciting on a points-based system rather than just a straight, is going up or down in the next 20 seconds. So.
And a final question for me would be about kind of your general expansion strategy. I've read in a couple of your press releases prior to recording this that there was a couple of mentions of Latin America and US. So is that kind of a big push, or?
Latin America, definitely. The US, I think really at the moment, we have an Isle of Man B2B license, which we were granted in April last year. So while that license has worldwide applicability, there are obviously, local restrictions in certain places. So for instance, at the moment, we couldn't go into the UK, we can't really go into the US, and we can't go into Oceania for Australia, for instance. But, we have seen very strong, Brazil is probably it's number 2 on the geos at the moment in the sense of what we've seen to date. So at the moment, it's, and you think about logically where the crash game, category has been very successful, it probably is in that, if you've got the Asian part of the Asian market, Latin America and Africa. And look, we haven't announced a deal in Africa yet, so there's nothing live there, but I do think that's going to be a very important market for us as well. So, I'd say those are the 3 key areas. And then, the parts of Europe that we can get into, without needing, until we can get whatever local requirements are done and things like that.
Brandt, thank you very much for coming on. It's all very interesting, and I'm genuinely excited to see kind of where you take the company over the next 12 months and onwards.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here.
I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you want to watch more, why not subscribe to our channel somewhere here.